Greater Centerville Historians organized in the year 2000. The purpose of the organization is to preserve the history of the Township of Centerville, Cleveland and surrounding area. Gerald O'Neill, Charlie Bauer, Richard Wagon, and myself, Kathleen Sixel, were the founding members. In 1831, the territory south of Green Bay was sold to the U.S. government by the Native Americans who had title to the land. The consideration was the promise of a reservation in another state. The Township of Centerville was established in 1850. The township had a village called Centerville. The reason for the hamlet's original name of Centerville was, in the days of the Indians, there was a trail along Lake Michigan between Manitowoc and Sheboygan. This heavenly spot was exactly at the halfway mark, so the early white man gave it the name Centerville. In 1849, the village of Centerville was surveyed and laid out in lots and blocks. The village of Centerville was renamed Hika when the Postmaster General informed the village leaders that another Centerville was located in the state. When it became time for Centerville to be renamed, a judge in Manitowoc by the name of Albert Schmidt would take kids hiking. The judge said, "You can't call a town hiking, so why not make it Hika?" Thus, the village of Centerville became Hika. In the early years, Centerville had the vision of becoming a lake port. To encourage ships to dock there, 2 piers were built into Lake Michigan. Many German immigrants arrived by schooners, and the village began to grow. The village had a brick factory, stores, schools, a Lutheran and a Catholic church, mills, saloons, blacksmith shop, and a fire department, and a brewery. When the brewery was built, the settlement began to flourish. But when fire destroyed the brewery, the largest industry, there was no longer a need for the harbor facilities. So ended this chapter of the development of Hika. 2 miles west of Hika, another settlement known as St. Wendel began to grow. It had a Catholic church, a general store with a connected dance hall, and a post office was also located in the complex, a funeral parlor, and at one time a motel. With the clearing of the forest, tilling of the land began. This prompted the exporting of lumber and grains. The farmers of Centerville looked forward to the building of a railway since they had a serious problem transporting their products. In 1873, the Milwaukee, Lakeshore, and Western Railroad was built between the settlements of Hika and St. Wendel and was named Centerville Station. In 1880, Centerville Station was renamed Cleveland after President Grover Cleveland. Cleveland, at that point in time, owes its growth to the fact that the Township of Centerville was a rich farming community, and farmers from miles around would bring products to be shipped by rail or ship. The village of Cleveland had several grocery stores, a furniture store, a funeral parlor, several saloons, Lutheran church, hardware stores, several gas stations, newspaper, photographer studio, several car dealerships, cheese factory, several feed mills, livestock yard, and lumber yards. The biggest business was the Cleveland Co-op, which offered many types of services. With the failing of grain crops, the farmers began dairy farming. With the abundance of milk, another industry began, cheese and butter making. Local cheese factories dotted the countryside. One-room schools were usually built near the cheese factories, so children would have a ride to school when farmers brought their milk. In 1958, Hika, St. Wendel, and Cleveland incorporated into the village of Cleveland. In 1968, the Cleveland Elementary School was built. The Township of Centerville has seen many farming changes, but dairy farming is still the primary vocation. Today, Cleveland is known as the seat of Lakeshore Technical College, which offers an educational alternative to 4-year colleges. An ancient proverb states, When an old person dies, a library burns to the ground. These words were the inspiration for organizing the Greater Centerville Historians. We hope to preserve as many memories as possible.
Here in Cleveland this evening, and I'd like to introduce you to Kathy Sixel, and she'd like to do a little recap and lead us a little bit in the directions that we normally are provided before we start another meeting. Go right ahead, Kathy.
My name is Kathy Sixel, and I live on near County Trunk X. And I want to welcome everybody tonight. It's so nice that everybody is coming, and I want to also welcome our new people. It is March 10th, and our last meeting was in January, and last time we spoke about downtown Cleveland, and then we sort of put Lloyd Vogel on the spot because he didn't know he had to talk, but he did a wonderful job.
Yes, he did.
On the lumber yard. So we're going to continue, and we're going to sort of focus on Mary Miller, and Mary is from Kiel, and she is an original resident from Cleveland. We're going to focus on her and on Willard and Alice tonight, and then the rest of you can chime in. Also, please raise your hand when you want to talk so that we get everything that you have to say, that not everybody speaks at one time. And now let's have introductions.
Okay, and Kathy, I know you already did, but you can do it one more time, please.
I'm Kathy Sixel.
Okay, Kathy. And who do you have here, please?
Mary Miller. I was Mary Austin, and my grandpa and grandma were Nennick, and my grandma was a Wagner.
Okay.
Which would be into the Dominic Wagner. They had a hotel, I believe, tavern.
Okay.
Where the old post office was.
Very good. We'll be back with you shortly. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Lloyd Vogel from Cleveland.
Okay. And where do you live, Lloyd?
On 1109 Elm Street.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Fred Jacoby, and I grew up on a farm north of Cleveland, but I live in Manitowoc for many years.
Okay, very good. And who do you have here, please?
Matthias, Cleveland, 1018 Juniper Street.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm his wife, Alice. Live in the same house.
Okay. Alice, we're going to get along well together.
Yeah, I originally came from Manitowoc before I got married.
Very good. Thank you so much. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Marie Pippert, and I guess I'm the oldest one here.
Okay. And
I was going to say the youngest one, but I thought,
And,
The best looking.
I was at your birthday there, and how old are you now, Marie?
89.
89 years old. Congratulations. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Bernard Chris. I live kitty corner from the bank.
Okay. He's got green pockets. Okay. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Dolores Cress. I live in 1279 West Washington.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Walter Crescent. I live in East Washington, Cleveland.
Okay. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Kathy Wagner, and I'm from 334 East Washington Avenue, and I'm a neighbor of Wally's.
Okay. Very good. And who do you have here, please?
Dorothy Anderson, and I live down in Hika and on Lincoln.
Okay.
I used to be, Walters used to be our neighbor.
Oh, he was your neighbor at one time.
Way back, as we
Way
grew up.
back. Wonderful. Okay. And who do you have here, please?
Charlie Bauer, Section 30, Town of Newton.
Okay. And I'm your videographer, Jerry O'Neill, and I also come from the town of Newton. And I'll go right back to Kathy here, and we can start a little bit of entry or intro. Go right ahead, please.
Well, let's see, where should we start tonight, do you think? I think we should start with Mary here. Mary has a lot of information, and she also has pictures, and she can tell them about the pictures.
These are my pictures.
Okay, when you show me your pictures, you show them to me slowly and indicate what we're looking at, okay?
This is the old firehouse.
Okay, can you tip it a little bit forward?
This way.
That way, yes. There we
Okay.
go, thank you. That's what again, please?
The old firehouse, and
All right.
there was a pond there, and that's where the firehouse that is now is on top of. There used to be a pond. That's where the kids would go skating. That's
Okay.
where the fire department would get their water.
Okay, the streets that this is on or in the intersection, anything like that, can you tell me that?
I don't know the streets.
Okay.
I just knew where I lived.
Okay.
We didn't have streets when I lived here.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Kathy would know.
No, I think it's Washington Avenue, right?
Washington
I
Ave-
have a question, Jerry.
Yes, go right ahead, Kathy.
You said the old firehouse, so that was torn down in like what year?
No, it was moved.
It was moved. Okay, Lloyd, you want to take over then on that?
Sure, Harold Whitmer bought it and has moved over, West, Wilmer's Tavern. Back in that swamp part, he moved it in there for a while and used it for storage.
Okay. Is it still in existence?
No. What happened to that after a while? Didn't move. Tore down. That tore it down, huh? From back, yeah, okay. I don't remember, I just remember they moved it and that's
Okay.
all.
Village Hall is now.
Yeah,
That's where they moved it to.
but then they tore it down after that? Okay.
President Smith tore it down.
Okay, very good. Okay, Mary, any other things that you've got there picture-wise?
I don't know these other ones. Well,
Okay.
this,
Just poke it fun,
What?
but you had it.
yeah, but this was, what is this?
That's from
That's the,
Willard.
that's the dairy, that's from Willard,
Willard,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the old dairy. That you'd have to talk to Willie about.
Okay, that's
And
the old
that's-
dairy.
Yes, that's on the Washington Street too, on the opposite side and a little of the fire department.
Here, and she's got a picture that she's been showing to us, but a little more information as to how or where she was located in regard to this building.
Across the street at the end of the block. You, I don't know how to, I was on the opposite side of the street, and then was the fire department, and then Boney's house, and then our house. But we had a large lawn.
Okay, all right. And again, that building is what?
That was Matthias Dairy.
That was Matthias Dairy.
And
Okay.
what was that other building next to it? Was that yours too?
No, what's his garage? What's his garage?
Oh,
What garage?
No,
Richie's garage.
that was, yeah, Marie's dad.
so
Do
you
we
should
have
talk
that?
to them down there.
Okay. Here, and she can explain a little bit more about the picture that Mary provided. Go right ahead, Marie.
It's, on the left is my dad's garage, and the other is the dairy.
Okay.
And the pond is over here where Wimmer's, they always had ducks on the pond.
Okay. Now, the building off to the left is your
My dad's garage.
dad's garage. And what was the name of that garage?
I think it was always Albert Lutzy Garage, but I see on here it says, looks like Cleveland Service Garage.
Okay. And can you give me the street that we're looking at there?
Washington,
Washington.
but that time it was not, you know.
Yeah.
there were
Okay.
no-
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Marie. Here who has a little bit of information, if you could introduce himself.
I'm Lloyd Vogel,
Okay, Lloyd?
and I have some information on the Vogel Lumber Company. This is
Okay.
the first office,
Okay.
and this is the old coal elevator.
Say that one more time.
This is the old coal elevator. We used to get coal shipped in and put them in different bins,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and then we stored it inside.
Uh-huh.
And after that got outdated,
Yes.
then we got the new office
Okay, could you show that to me and
Yes.
raise that up a little bit, please?
here.
Okay. That was your new office?
Yeah, that was after the first one I showed you.
Okay, and that was part of the Vogel Lumber
Yeah,
Company?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then after a while, when they tore the elevator down, they built the new office down here, this one.
Okay, and what year is that built?
That was 79.
Okay.
I think
And-
it was 77 really, but the paper says 79, but I think it was
Okay.
built in 77, I'm pretty sure.
And that location is again where?
On Hickory Street.
On Hickory Street. Okay. And how many years did that exist like that?
This,
Yes, sir.
it still is there, but now it's not Vogel Lumber Company, but it was it's still standing, but they use it now for just a drywall business office.
Okay, very good. And whose drywall business is there now? Can you tell me that?
It's called Lakeshore Drywall.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Okay, any other pictures you have?
And then I also have some pictures when they had the shop fire.
Okay,
That was in 57.
that was in
And
1957.
there's Harold Wimler and Harold Culp in there.
Okay, can you hold those steady for me, please? Okay. Now, who's sitting in the truck?
That's Harold Culp.
That's Harold Culp. Okay, and on this
That's
picture,
Harold Wimler and, can I take it away?
that's fine.
That's Harold Cope again.
Okay. And this is in regard to a fire that was happening
In
there?
our shop, yeah.
Fire in your shop.
Yeah, this is Harold Wilmer and my dad, Lavril Vogel. That's in the shop.
Okay. And Mr. Wimler was what at that time?
He was the fire chief.
He was the fire chief.
Yeah, yeah. He was the
And
fire chief.
what year was this fire? Do you remember?
That was 57, January of 57.
Okay, very good. And any other pictures there?
No, that's just the same.
Okay.
That's it.
Very good. Was the damage that was sustained by the fire very extensive, or was it minor?
It was actually minor to the shop, but there was some moldings and lumber upstairs, and that was pretty expensive stuff, and that was
Okay.
almost all lost.
All lost?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the shop wasn't that serious.
Okay. And you rebuilt that somewhat and
Just
kept the business running at the same
Right.
location?
Yeah, same
Okay.
location, right.
Very good. Thank you. Alice?
Hi there. This is a picture of the dairy.
Okay. Can you
It's
tip it
located-
forward just a little bit, please? That's
It's
good.
located on Washington Street.
Okay.
And across from that, you see the pond.
Yes.
That used to be called the Duck Pond, right, or something?
That was the
Wimblers.
name of the pond then?
Right, and the
Okay.
Wimblers across the street with the tavern used
Okay.
to bring their ducks over there, I guess, and used to eat all the scum off the water. So they tell me. I wasn't around then.
Okay.
And right next to it was the firehouse. Do you see the fire truck in the background?
Can you tip the picture a little bit? That's
There, I'm
great. I'm
sorry.
going to just, okay, yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
So
good.
the fire station was right to the left here.
Okay.
Okay, and this picture here shows at winter time. Did you have this picture?
We had it, but maybe you can talk about it some more.
This is a pond that was frozen over, and the kids used that for ice skating.
Okay.
They scrape off part of it.
All right. Now, is that the same pond we're looking at in the summertime?
This one, right.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, that's the same pond.
Very good.
This one here is just one of the dairy trucks.
Okay, just 1 minute. And if that's the way, great. Okay, and was there only one dairy truck or was there more?
No, here's a picture of older ones.
Ah,
This
okay.
is like from 1944,
All right.
right?
And
I think so. Don't see in the background.
now, Matthias Dairy, if I should ask you or anybody here, what did they really do? Did they make?
Here.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
he's
guy.
the man that knows it all. Please identify yourself.
Willard Matthias,
Hi, Willard.
former Matthias Dairy employee.
Okay. You can start talking and I'll ask the questions a little bit later.
This is the front end of the dairy,
All right.
and over here was our dairy store on this side where people could come in and buy the products.
Okay.
And down here were our older vats where we pasteurized the milk in.
Okay.
The smaller one was used for like chocolate milk, and this other one was used for whipping cream and coffee cream and stuff like that. That was in the other one.
All right.
All right, and then on the bottom here are the new ones that each tank held 300 gallons of milk.
Okay.
And here are the products that we bottled at that time.
Okay.
Okay.
Looked like, was there a cottage cheese also you made?
Yes, yes.
There was.
Cheese and cottage cheese and butter.
Okay. All right. Very good.
And here are the ladies bottling the milk.
Okay.
And the other bottom one is where the drivers came back from the routes and they would unload the empty bottles in the bottom one. And this is where the ladies bottled the milk.
Okay. Now, as far as the milk received, did you have bulk trucks or any kind of trucks with cans?
Cans milk at that time.
Canned milk at that time?
Yeah, I haven't gotten those pictures from anybody yet if we have any. So
Okay, but
I'll look around.
you had that milk come in, then you processed it and pasteurized it and made it into the various products that you sold.
Right.
Okay, now, go right ahead, please.
Name the ladies.
What?
Name the ladies on there.
Could you name the ladies?
Oh, sure.
Well, that'd be great, thank you.
This one is Alice Schumacher.
Okay.
And that one is Esther Brumeyer.
Esther Brumeyer, okay.
They're both deceased,
They're
right?
both these, and did they live in the immediate area, by
Yes,
the way?
they both lived in Cleveland.
Okay, very good.
And here's the bottling machines. And this big thing on top here is where the milk run over to get cooled off. to be
Oh,
Put
okay,
into the bottles.
okay.
And this is one of the older machines that we had at that time.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, very good.
Okay, now we came the making of the cheese.
Yes. Oh,
This is, cheddar cheese is being made there,
okay.
and that vat is full. You can see that it holds 12,500 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
And the bottom one is Mrs. Permeyer bottling gallon milk.
Okay.
So
All right. And maybe I'll ask at this point, how many employees did work there?
we had 26 at one time.
Really? And that included milk haulers and
Everybody, yeah.
okay. Now the distribution, trying to get that word out. You had trucks for that, you
Yes.
had said?
We bottled milk for a city dairy at Chilton.
Okay.
We had a city dairy at
Two Rivers.
Two Rivers, and a Bartell Dairy at New Holstein, and one individual that was was at Manitowoc delivering house.
Okay.
On our own, it was 5 different places where we got rid of our milk.
Okay. Now the milk that you delivered on your own, did you deliver that
House to house.
house to house?
And to the city of Sheboygan in the stores. And
Okay.
Manitowoc and Kiel.
Okay. Very good. As far as you being employee there, is that correct?
Yes.
What was your duties when you worked there? From the time you started till you came to the end of your days there?
Whatever came up. I was mostly the cheese maker and cottage cheese maker
Okay.
and field man and things like that.
Okay. Very good.
And delivered milk.
Oh, he delivered milk?
Part-time.
Part-time. Part-time.
Whatever, wherever they needed.
Now, since you're married to this man, did you also work there?
No,
You didn't work
no,
there?
not at all.
Oh, okay,
No.
okay.
I used to have to do their dirty wash,
Their dirty wash?
the big bat covers that they had over those cheese
Oh,
things.
yeah, sure.
And I dreaded every one I had to wash. They smelled terrible. That's all I had. to
That's
do
all
with
you
the dairy.
had.
And we lived above the dairy. for
And you
a while.
lived above the dairy?
For
Okay,
about, what, 2, 3 years, 4
Free
years?
rent, free heat, free light.
wonderful.
And no pay.
Was that at the beginning or at the end or in the middle of your employment? At the end?
Near the end.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you. Here, she can maybe introduce herself and indicate a couple of questions.
My name is Kathy Sixel, and I have a question for Mr. Matthias, for Willard. When did your dairy start and when did it end? And did you deliver milk with horses years ago?
Okay. Here, could you maybe answer those questions? Go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Matthias. As far as I know, my dad bought the factory from Mr. Sixel in 1924.
Okay, and Mr. Sixel, could you give his name, please?
No, I don't know his name. I
Okay.
just know it was Mr. Sixel.
Okay,
And we closed in 1959.
all right. And may I ask the reason for the closing of the...
Couldn't compete.
Couldn't compete. Isn't that amazing?
You could work all the hours you wanted and still can't compete.
Isn't that something? Now, do you remember anything, price of milk at that point for a bottle of milk or quart?
When we quit delivering milk, I think it was around 59 cents a gallon.
Okay, wow.
And when I first started, when I was a little kid, helping my dad, I remember selling milk for 8 cents a quart, 4 cents a pint, and we delivered milk 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Every day.
Wow.
There was no refrigeration in people's homes at that time.
Oh, okay, yes, very good. Well, thank you. Lady, you had a very good question. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Dorothy Anderson, and I was wondering how many farmers contributed to the milk factory, and yeah, how many?
Okay.
They all came in with horses? No, they came in with.
That was years ago. I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Do
thank
you have any idea how many were contributing to that? He's got.
you. Maybe you can introduce himself, please?
I'm Willard Matthias, and the question was how many farms we had.
Yes.
When my dad bought the cheese factory at that time, he had 14 farmers
Okay,
that brought it themselves to the
okay,
dairy. 14, and he made cheese in the wintertime as much as 2 times or 3 times a week only because there wasn't enough milk.
okay.
And when at our peak, we had 100 farms.
Really? Wow.
And if you look around to this day and drive around at those farms, if you would find 10 out of the 100 still producing milk, that would be about it.
That'd be it. Totally gone completely there. Wonderful. Well, it's a sad story, but thank you very much. Here who's ready to give us a lot of information. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Vernon Kress. Regarding the Matthias Dairy, I got into this place too because, well, I was a cousin.
Okay.
And I was a mechanic.
Okay.
And I was jack of all trades.
Uh-huh.
I helped make cheese, and I was electrician, and I fixed the trucks, and
Wonderful. They need a guy like that.
yeah,
Okay.
well,
Now, and with the milk part of it, any particular area that you worked with, or was it all over the place?
all over the place.
Everywhere. Okay.
And I delivered for a while too, to
Oh,
Sheboygan.
okay.
Gallon milk. A whole truckload full.
Oh boy.
I don't know how many gallons were in there, but several hundred, huh? Several hundred gallons to about 15, 20 stores.
Okay.
That's where I got my muscles.
Okay. Now you had to load up the truck. Is that right? That was
Right.
part of your duties.
Yes,
Okay. Then
Drive to Sheboygan.
drive to Sheboygan.
and go from store to store.
Okay.
Unload milk and
Uh huh.
bring back the empties.
Okay.
Come back to Cleveland, throw the empties down on the track
Okay.
to be washed and bottled the next day.
Okay. Now that's something we're not aware of too much in this day and age with plastic in the picture.
No,
Okay.
this was all gallon jugs.
all gallon jugs,
Glass,
jugs.
half gallons,
Okay.
even little half pints of milk.
Really?
That was an advantage. I could go back in the truck and take one once in a while.
Now, what kind of a cap or sealing did they have on that glass jugs of milk? What kind
it
of
was
a
double sealed.
double sealed?
It had a cap on the top and had a plastic wrapper over the top, which was wrapped with another plastic band.
Okay, I see a picture beneath me here. Is that going to show us anything of what you described? Can you tell me what you're indicating there?
Sure.
Okay.
Here's a quart of milk. Here's a gallon of milk.
Okay.
Here's a half gallon of milk.
Yeah.
Here's a pint of milk.
Okay.
And here's a carton of cottage cheese.
Okay.
Here's a pound of butter.
All
And
right.
here's some more bulk cheese.
Okay. And again, that way of holding that cover on the bottle is what? Can
Here,
you-
right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
It came over the top, and then there was a band around that.
A band around it. Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Very good. I'd like to introduce herself. She has a question.
I'm Marie Pippert. It wasn't just that they delivered milk. I remember that we would go in there and buy things in there. I lived only about 4 houses away from there, and I remember going through in the backyard, and we
Okay.
often bought the milk in there. And ice cream, I remember the ice cream, a quart of ice cream went as far as what a gallon does now. That was such good ice cream in those days.
Oh, okay.
And I also remember going in there and eating those, what do you call those things?
Cheese curds?
Cheese curds.
Yeah,
Cheese
cheese curds.
curds.
I remember that right out of those vats.
Ooh, that's good stuff. Very good. Thank you, Marie.
There's a lot of-
Would you like to say a few words?
I'm Kathy Sixel, and I would like to know, Willard, if that was in the days when the cream came on top of the gallons, and then you had a gadget, and you could take this cream off and off the quarts too? And I also, I'm wondering, did you rent or what, did you store butter or something in that brick building at the co-op at one time? Okay, that's it.
That's it. Thank
That's
you.
it.
Who's been hammered a little bit with questions. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Willard Matthias, and your question is what we stored over at the Cleveland, at the old Lutzy Cheese Factory, or Cheese House. We stored our extra bottles, our paper bottles. We'd get salt in, and we'd share a semi-load or a train load with Cleveland Co-op. We'd buy sugar and the salt, and we'd get shared with the Cleveland Co-op. They would buy maybe half the truck, the train load, and we'd get the other half.
Okay.
Cheese.
And we'd put cheese in all our cheese. We didn't have enough room
Okay.
in the dairy.
All right.
So we hauled our cheese over there and put it in racks over there, and then at night I'd go over there and box it up the next day. And
Okay.
then once a week or twice a week, between Bernie or Oliver, whoever was around, would haul this cheese to whoever gave us the best price.
Okay. All right. Very good.
What
Thank
other
you.
question you want to? Okay, your question was, what the milkman, when he picked up the milk from the farmers, the farmers would order if they wanted a butter or cheese, and then they ordered one day, and if they were lucky, they got it the next day if the driver didn't forget it.
Okay.
And as far as you said, mold on your cheese that you got from the place, that shouldn't be, but it did happen if it was wrapped too soon before you delivered it. Nowadays, they put something what you call formaldehyde. They spray the cheese with that when it goes before they wrap it, and that will preserve it. That's just
Okay.
like, that they don't,
Yes.
and they can wrap it. And we didn't at that time, no factories had it, where if the air got at it and it wasn't the right moisture in it, or the cheese stood out too long, before you wrapped it, it will mold a little
Yes.
faster.
Okay. Okay, a question from my end of it. I think you might have answered everything that was questioned before. I've seen some cheese that has like a wax coating. Did you do any of that?
Yes, that at our time, that's the only way you had it.
Oh, okay.
Because when you heat your wax up,
Yep.
cut your cheese, and you would dip it into this wax, and then take it back out, and you let it sit for a while, and you dip the other, all yours on
yes.
one side.
Yes,
and
yes.
then you would go back and start dipping in the other.
Okay, so that sealed it up.
That sealed it.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Here is very anxious, and she'd like to introduce herself. Go right ahead.
I'm Alice Matthias,
Yes.
and when we lived above the dairy, it was always very, very hot in summer,
Okay.
and especially when they, well, I'm saying wash the cans, but that isn't just what they did when
Dump
they
the milk,
dumped
wash
the
the
milk
cans.
and washed
Oh,
the
yeah,
cans.
sure.
That heat would all come upstairs,
Oh,
like,
boy,
and
yes.
especially through in our bedroom, it seemed to. And in winter, you had no problem. You didn't even have to turn the heat on.
Uh-huh.
It was always so warm.
Uh-huh.
But then, when the dairy closed, they closed like, I think it was in fall, right?
No.
Or in spring? Yeah, okay, maybe in spring of
Yes.
'59.
Yeah.
And we lived there, through the first winter, we were planning to live there because
Yeah.
we had bought our house and our
Sure.
house was rented for a year.
Okay.
But anyhow, we tried to live there through the first winter, and we were using like a ton of coal, thanks to Vogel lumber, like a day, and we could never get the apartment warm at all.
No, okay.
So needless to say, we didn't have enough money to keep buying a ton of coal a day, so we moved over across the street to where Willie's folks lived, in the
Okay.
Matthias house.
Very good thought there. That
But
was a
that was
good
the
idea.
end of anybody living in the dairy.
Thank you. Very good.
You're welcome.
Chris been under the gun, but he's pretty strong. He'll hang in there for us. We're talking a little bit about all the family helping out here. Could you go over that, please?
At one time, my brother Elroy and my dad done the work at the dairy.
Okay.
And after that, Elroy moved to Milwaukee, and then, let's see, and Bart helped out,
Okay. Bart is who?
Bart Matthias.
Okay. Is that a relation?
That's my brother.
That's your brother.
It's all brothers.
Okay. Okay.
And after, then when I got out of school, then I stayed at home at the dairy, and then just before I left for the service, my brother Merlin came home and took over
Okay.
with my dad.
Okay.
And later on, he took over the dairy.
All right.
And then when Bart came out of the service, he joined the dairy, and he took over the bottling business,
Okay.
and that's when we started the gallon milk business.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I come out of the service, I came home and I started making cheese again.
Okay.
And then Bart left the dairy to go out to Arizona due to illness.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just Merlin and myself there
Okay.
until we closed.
All right. Now, how long has your dad been involved in that dairy? He was the one that bought it?
He bought it. My dad had a factory up out Clark County.
Oh, okay.
He had one cheese factory. He sold that. And he bought a factory up in Two Creeks.
Okay.
And he sold that. And then he was going to just work in Manitowoc for the Midwest Creamery.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, he picked up the cream from this place, and then Mr. Sixel says, yeah, I'm selling out. And then my dad says, well, I'll buy it. So he bought the dairy and the house
Mm-hmm.
from him. And that was, I think it was 1924.
Okay, very good. Okay, a question for you. There was a lot of other dairies around. There was Fischel's, there was, like you mentioned, a few other ones around the area. What kind of, how can I say, visiting did you have to do to the farmers in order to entice them to get the milk to you instead of going someplace else? Did you have to
Well,
do some bartering or bargaining, or how did you do that?
I remember going with my father one night that we had, this was out in Liberty. Now we got stopped by this one farmer, and he was going to quit that place where he was hauling milk to Pine River Dairy.
Okay.
And he was going to quit, so then we got him.
Okay.
And now we've got 40 farmers hauling to our dairy.
Wow.
And then the next day, Rhodey's Dairy at Nordheim closed up.
Okay.
So
Yes.
my dad went over there with the farmer, and he introduced my dad to 23 other farmers.
Okay.
So the next day, we had 63 farmers. All right. So then, later on, we had a cheesemaker up at Pine Grove.
Okay.
He's going to close up.
Okay.
So then he hauled his milk down to our place. And then, so now we've got 81 customers.
My goodness.
So then, not too long after that, Pine River Dairy closed up at Newton.
Okay.
And now we've got over 100 farms. They haul the milk down to us.
My goodness.
So now we got all this milk, and we're working hard, you know. So you think, boy, now we're really going. But the thing is, if you can't make any money in the thing,
Yep. Yep.
you can work as hard as you want, and you can't come out.
Okay.
And then what other place was there?
I know there was a lot of small dairies around. Osmond Dairy, anything from
Oh,
there?
yeah. Then Osmond Dairy burns out.
Yep. Okay.
And so we took over that business too yet until they rebuild.
Okay.
So then I'm working from 1 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And
Okay.
I got hired help, of course, but then, you know, you gotta be with them. But we did that for one haul, a couple of months.
Wow.
So, we did run a lot of milk through that place.
You sure did. You sure. And it was something that came on quite abruptly, apparently.
Right.
And manpower and capabilities had to be stretched right to the limit, I'm sure.
That's right. And then another bad thing was one day when we have 3 good hired men said they're leaving.
Oh. Okay.
They're all going in the Marines. And that was Jerry Leonard,
Okay.
Harold Lungman, and Eddie Wagner,
Okay.
all leaving together for the Marines. So that was quite a blow.
I guess.
And they gave us 2 weeks' notice, so that we would get the help together again
Yes.
to break them in and everything. So
Okay.
I think that's when you started, Bernie, huh, on delivering milk in Sheboygan.
Okay. Very good. Very good story. You've got something? Yes, please.
I have a question for him. I'm Alice Matthias again.
Okay.
Like you don't know. But anyhow,
Good.
they had a fire or two at the dairy.
Oh, really?
Two.
2
So
fires.
probably he could tell you about it. I
Well-
remember one of them.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Very
Okay.
good. Okay, back to you, sir.
I'm Willard Matthias.
Okay.
Okay. We had one fire when I was over in Okinawa. I got the letter, and my mother said that they were building on section where the cooler was.
Okay.
And they were doing it themselves, and we had tar run over, and then that caught fire, and that burned out the new cooler that they were building.
Wow.
That wasn't too bad. But then, I don't forget what year this was, we had, I could have brought that piece of paper along, I've got it at home. When the next one was when I was living, shortly after I was married, got up that morning and was ready to go to work, and the fire siren goes. So I'm ready to go to the fire, and I run out to my car, and I look over and I see the dairy is burning. This is maybe at 5:30 in the morning. So, that night all day we had, we fired at Howard's Grove, Haven, and Cleveland.
Okay.
All fighting that fire.
Yes.
And that same night, let's say 10 o'clock, we were back making cheese and bottling milk.
Really?
And we had, I think, every electrician and plumber in the whole area coming in and getting this stuff all together. So the next morning, and the fellas that were on the routes delivering the stuff had their milk to go again.
Unbelievable.
So,
Unbelievable. Excellent. That talks about commitment to an occupation.
you got that right.
Thank you.
What year? This fire was in 1952 or 53.
Very good. Thank you very
We
much.
were living above Mrs.
Okay. Now, you say you were living above, you were not living in the quarters there when that fire happened?
My brother was there.
Your brother was? Okay. Nobody got injured?
No.
Okay, very good. But I gotta say, the people that helped you out must have been outstanding.
They were. Everybody helped you.
Very good. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Sixel, and I have a question for Mr. Matthias. Did the penicillin affect your cheese making at all? And did you learn the trade from your father, or did you go to school?
Okay, thank you.
When I came out of the service, I've been a cheesemaker since I was a kid. I grew up in that thing. And also I made one batch of butter.
One batch.
One batch. Yeah, and my dad was sick, and that was when they were starting rationing butter. And before, they were going to start on a Monday, so we had cream ready to go to make butter on Monday. Then we had to get this butter out on Sunday, because from then on, it's going to be rationed. So my dad was very sick at that time, so he sent me over there and he told me what to do. So I made this big thing full of butter, and I think it was about 150 pounds of butter. And so I run this churn, and then I'd stop it and run over there by my dad. He'd look at it, no, a little more yet. So I have to run back again, churn it some more. And then by running over there and back, the buttermilk stayed in that churn too long.
Uh-oh.
So then it was stripy inside by the time I got that out. But would you believe that Sunday, when I got done making that butter, by 6 o'clock that night, I didn't have 1 pound of butter in the dairy. It was all sold with the stripes and all.
Okay, that's rationing thing.
That's right.
Okay, now, when did that happen, or do you know a year that this might
That
be?
must have been at least 1942.
And this is because of the war, World War II?
Right, yeah.
And all the rationing was set about by the
Government.
the United States government?
Right.
And the rationing would be what? They couldn't buy any more butter? They had to go to a military position?
No, you could buy butter, but you needed those little coupons.
Okay.
Stamps.
Stamps.
Yeah.
Okay. Ration stamps, okay.
Right. And then, well, after that, we decided not to be making any butter because it was such a hassle.
Okay.
Telling them how much you made and this and that. And
Okay.
cheese was also rationed at that time.
Okay. Now, did the government come to your facility to talk to you about this, about
they
joining in or something, or what?
They just wrote you a letter, and this
They
is
wrote
it.
you a letter.
And after Monday, that was it. But we didn't want to futz around
Yeah, I know.
with this coupon deal on the butter no more. So
Okay.
we discontinued getting, and we had the butter brought in from Midwest Creamery in Sheboygan, Manitowoc.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. From the floor, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Charlie Bauer, and I was just wondering, on your labels on your glass bottles for when you sold your milk, was there paper labels? Were there paper labels on your glass bottles, or was it embossed on the glass itself?
It was right in the glass.
Still after this gentleman. And there was a question, and maybe you can just reiterate it again, please.
Okay, I'm Willard Matthias, and you can see on the picture here where our name was indented into the bottle, right there.
Okay, so it was,
The gallon jugs, we didn't have no names on.
okay,
But on the gallon jugs and the half-gallon jugs, there was a deposit of
okay,
15 cents per jug.
all right,
And when you bring the jug back, you got your money back, or you just exchanged it. and got
okay,
another
got
one.
another one, okay.
There
But,
was a deposit on them.
so you had your own glass bottles with your own
Only-
name?
Right.
Okay, and,
And half pints and thirds, whatever you wanted, everything had your name on it.
okay,
And I want to say that when we bottled this milk for the other dairies, that they had their own names on those bottles.
okay,
But on the cap, we had a permit number
ah,
that they could go, anybody that really wanted to know who bottled that milk, there was a number on each cap
Okay.
saying each plant was given a number.
okay,
And that when people would, the state man would come and look, he knew just who bottled the milk.
sure, sure. As far as speed of production, we'll say the gallon jugs, how many, with your equipment that you had at your optimum condition, how many gallons per hour, if I can put that to you, that you were able to put out?
That I couldn't tell you, but I know on these half pints, the
Yes, sir.
small bottle,
Yes, sir?
there were 60 bottles a minute.
60, one every second?
Yeah.
Wow,
And the gallon jugs, I couldn't tell you, because they took longer.
okay,
And the quarts too, and the
Okay.
half pints were 60 a minute.
okay, was the mouth opening on the glass jugs, was that the same diameter on all the jugs that they could be run through the machines, or?
No, the half pints and the quarts and the thirds, so the third one we don't have on here,
Yeah,
and the pint isn't on there. Those are all the same,
okay,
but the gallons and the half gallons were bigger,
all right,
okay? See, this machine only took the gallons and the half gallons.
all right,
And this other machine, here, that took the quarts and the half pints. and
Okay.
Thirds and
all right, very good. She has her hand up, she must have a question.
I just have a comment.
Okay.
I'm Alice Matthias.
Yes,
And years back, the Matthias Dairy always advertised in the, I don't know if it was in the Manitowoc paper. At that time, I don't think we had a local paper. And they always had a cartoon about a 4x6 or 8 or something like that,
yes,
advertising Matthias Dairy. I got a whole slew of them at home, and they're really funny.
okay.
They're cute. They're really cute.
That'd be interesting to see those.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mhm.
You had a question here, go right ahead, please.
I'm Dorothy Anderson, and I was wondering if the milk and the products were pasteurized.
Okay, just one moment.
I'm
Please.
Willard Matthias. The milk, you asked if it was pasteurized? Yes, it was. I remember when my dad first started bottling milk, that was years and years ago when we were kids, we used to bottle 3 milk cans full of milk a day, 3. And that was all pasteurized at that time already.
Okay,
And then later on, we bought these big pasteurizers when we started bigger. But then we had regular milk, homogenized milk, Guernsey milk, skim milk, chocolate milk,
wow,
all kinds of
Buttermilk.
buttermilk,
buttermilk, okay, very
whipping
good.
cream, you
Wow.
name it, we had it.
Yeah, you were a variety.
And each one of the dairies received all those every day, but in their own bottles.
Sure. Okay, I got another question. This goes back a little in history, and it might have affected you or not, I don't know. I think it was around 1947, 48 in there. A disease by the name of brucellosis or something went through the cattle. They called it Bang's disease also. Did that affect you? Because I know a lot of cows had to be gotten rid of.
Yeah, you brought that up. When this milk would come in, and once in a while, you always have to, every can of milk you dumped, you gotta smell it. When you take the cover off, you had to smell every can
Okay,
to see what was, if it stunk too bad or what. But that can would be pushed to the side, and we put cheese coloring in there.
Okay.
and send it back out again to the farmer, because we couldn't use it.
Uh-huh.
And, like
Now,
you said,
cheese coloring did what to the?
made it yellow.
Made it yellow, so then
And
you could,
They can't put it back into the next day again.
okay.
Because it was colored.
Okay,
And they'd get mad, but what can you do?
that's right. I can understand.
And then, what else was it?
Okay, this brucellosis,
They had mastitis at one
yes,
time.
yep,
That milk would get thick.
yes,
And when the fella, whoever was dumping up there, you could take the cover off and you'd look in it before you dumped it, then you could tell there was
Yep.
something wrong with it.
okay.
And if you didn't, then you had troubles.
You had trouble, that's right.
You'd have to dump whatever, wherever it went.
Okay, now when they dumped it into the vat, right from
It didn't go in the vat, it went
into a holding tank of some kind?
well, yes, later on we had holding it. At one time it went right into the vats.
Oh, okay,
That was years ago before we pasteurized all our milk.
all right,
But later on, we had a pasteurizer, and the milk would go into the holding tank, and from the holding tank, it would get pumped right into the pasteurizer, and pasteurizer would go into the vat.
okay. Now, as far as filtering the milk or for cleanliness,
It was all strained once more when we
Okay.
got it there.
all right,
And it was supposed to be strained at the dairy, but it
By the
was
farmer.
strained twice when it got by us. When we first dumped it into the
okay,
weighing tank, it was strained there, and then once more when it left there before it went into the holding tank.
okay. As a youngster on the farm, I can remember there was two kinds of cans. At one time, there was these big honking things.
Yeah,
That they're,
115 pounds.
yeah, that was the one. Did you have to work with that also?
Yes, at one time we had farmers that hauled their own milk.
Yes.
And they had these cans. And then, well, it was all right. But years ago, if you can remember, farmers always wanted whey.
Yes,
by
okay,
the byproduct. Okay.
yes,
So they would come with 6, 7 of those big cans, half full of milk, each one. see?
okay,
But when they left the dairy, they would take 6 cans of whey home full. So where do you pick up this extra whey?
way.
You gotta have a good water tank, a wood pump.
Okay, maybe I'll ask one final question. I know when you got equipment like that running all the time, there's bound to be something break, something go awry. Can you indicate one area or one time?
Well, if I would come back again, I'll have to bring some pictures of our milk trucks. I think we had, the ones that rolled over.
Oh, yeah.
We had,
Okay, now you're teasing me.
usually on a Sunday morning,
Yes, sir.
there was something going on all the time. That one morning I can take you back to Oliver Kissinger's driving. He's going to through Liberty,
Okay,
but the Liberty Church there, and
Okay.
the guy was a little late to ring the church bell, so he didn't stop for the stop sign, and he pulls out in front of our driver, and Oliver takes the ditch and rolls the truck over. And the fella that was ringing the church bells, he quick went over there, rang his bells, and then he came over to look what happened at the. And one day, Leslie Gakey was driving right at Clover.
okay,
He stopped for the stop sign, looked both ways, and pulled out. Before he knew it, the whole front end of the truck was gone. Cement truck from Sheboygan with a load of tile on. Took the whole front end off of that truck. And Leslie's sitting there with the string. And I always kid Leslie when I see him. I said, "You are so lucky. It would have been another couple feet, and that truck would have just run right over him."
oh,
And who else was that yet? I know one day Oliver and I were driving along, picking up milk in the wintertime. Oliver avoids a big snowbank and rolls the truck over. There we are again. So we had drivers that picked up milk, delivered milk house to house. They'd roll one over too once in a while. So I mean, we always had something going on all the time.
well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that one.
My name is Kathy Sixel, and I would like to ask Mr. Matthias, if he can elaborate on the Bangs disease. My parents happened to lose their whole herd to it.
Yes.
And that was around Christmas time. So that Christmas, my uncle and aunt bought us all our Christmas things. And nobody seems to know what this disease was or
Yes.
what happened.
I couldn't tell you either.
You could don't either.
Okay.
Do you know, Frederick?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be good. Frederick,
Thank you. I got it.
introduce yourself, please.
Hold it.
Go right ahead, please.
Waiting for the green light. I'm Fred Jacoby.
Okay, Fred.
I was just a farmer long enough to know Bangs disease was a problem. The cows aborted their calves. It was after they were carrying a calf, and the way it affected the situation was milk production was lost
Yes.
dramatically
Right.
because they didn't go through their normal cycle, and so that was the problem, and was apparently very contagious.
Right.
But that's about as much as I know about it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Who has a comment, I guess, and he brought up something unique. Go right ahead, please.
We're trying to figure out what year the milk strike was. Oh, I'm Walter Crest.
Yes.
We're trying to determine what year the milk strike was. I remember my grandpa had a farm, and we used to take a milk can home.
Okay.
They couldn't ship the milk, so we took a milk can home. We had cottage cheese and stuff at home. You
Okay.
could probably ask Willard if he remembers what year that strike was.
Okay, and the farmers were causing the strike, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because there was some problem. Can you remember what is
They
the
wanted
problem?
higher wages, I guess,
Higher price for the milk. So there was a strike by the farmers.
by the farmers.
Okay, very good. Thank you. On the floor, maybe you can reiterate that question again about milk strike, perhaps?
Yes, years back when I was a youngster, then there was this milk strike where a few of the farmers, I should say, said that they weren't going to be hauling their milk anymore
Okay.
to the factories because they weren't getting enough of their milk.
Okay.
And there were quite a few cheese factories that wouldn't take the milk either until this thing got settled.
Okay.
But I know, I think it was 1 or 2 days my dad didn't make cheese at that time.
Okay.
But anybody that, must have been towards fall or when it was not so cold outside yet.
Yes.
Or it was colder out, so that he could, the farmers that did bring their milk there, he put it in the vat, and then in a day or two, then he'd make cheese out of it anyway.
Okay.
But I remember I was a kid at that time. but,
Okay. About how, can you just indicate how old you might have been?
Maybe I was 8 or 9 years old.
Okay, very good.
70 years, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Here who is interested in some parts of history, and she can also provide some. Go right ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Mary Miller. As far as the tavern in Cleveland, it was started by Dominic Wagner.
Okay,
The next one we feel was Art Reiser.
okay,
Then it was Matt Kleckner, Joe and Carol Scheid,
okay,
Hank Schwinn, Ray Bushman, David Down, and Roger Yerk. I don't know the new owner,
okay,
but I'm going to be talking to Rosie Bushman, Ray's wife,
okay.
tomorrow, and she maybe could see
Yes.
that we have it in the right order.
Very good. And if she can also provide any names of the facility under different proprietors, that would be helpful also.
Right.
Okay, and you're looking for some information too, I understand.
Okay, now Dominic Wagner was my grandma's brother,
Okay,
and I would like to know if anybody knows anything about the Wagners.
okay. And your grandma's name was what?
Anna Nennig. She married Albert Nennig.
Okay. Okay, we'll see if anybody can help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please?
I'm Alice Matthias, and I have a question for on the taverns. Are we forgetting Fay Buddish that owned it before,
This guy. that's in
this
the-
new guy? Yeah, they were owners.
Faye Buddish?
Buddish, and what
Okay.
was her husband's name?
Jim.
Jim.
Okay, very good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. To have a lady introduce herself and in regard to the operators that run the tavern.
I'm Kathy Wagner, and when Joe and Carol Scheid were operating that particular tavern, they called it the K9 Club. It was a K dash and then the number 9.
Okay, 9,
And they
okay.
had dog pictures around.
Oh, okay, very good. Any other operators that might have had special names of the place?
I don't know of any other ones.
Okay, very good, thank you. You would like to present a question and maybe have a few answers also at the same time. Go right ahead, please.
I remember a church south of Washington on the west side of the railroad track, maybe like 2 or 3 hundred feet to the south.
Okay,
And I understand it was a Reformed church.
yes?
And it always looked like a nice church, but then after a while they tore it down, and I always think that would have been a nice historical building to have.
Okay. What kind of material was it built of? Do you know at all?
Stone, wasn't it?
Stone?
Big block or stone block or something.
Okay, and it was a Reformed church,
That's what I hear.
and at this time we don't know if there was an additional name to that church.
No, and then they think that some people don't think there were many services in it.
Okay, just 1 second, we'll find that out.
I'm Walter Kress, and you're talking about this Reformed church.
Yes, sir.
I can remember going to a funeral with my dad. And
Okay.
I think it was Dorothy's great-grandmother.
Okay,
Well, I was a real little guy, so
all right. So this church was rather,
it's been 75, 80 years ago.
okay, okay. Is that church still there?
Church is not standing anymore.
Nothing
Junior
anymore.
Sohn tore it down
Okay.
in the 70s.
Was it a large church or a small church?
It was fairly small,
Okay.
built out of cement blocks.
All right, very good, thank you. You just celebrated her birthday not too long ago, but she's got a question and maybe some answers.
Yeah, I'm Marie Pippert, and I'm arguing with Willard Matthias over here.
Uh-oh.
He said you didn't think there were any services in there, but I don't remember the minister or anything in there.
Yes,
And there was never a name, we just always called it Reformed Church, but I
Okay.
remember going in there with the fiddler girls, and there was Roland Fiddler, they had all girls, and then just, we called them Fitty. And I remember taking communion in there, and it was just like cut pieces of bread, squares,
okay,
and it was like wooden benches, but I don't remember the minister or anything. But I remember it was the Mills went there,
all right,
the watchmaker, what was his name?
Fred.
And Mrs. Sedlock and Mrs. Stolmerk, Reuben Stolmerk's wife, they all belonged there. And all the fiddlers.
And the previous meeting, they talked about bailiffs.
That could be.
Somebody said.
Yeah, I think so. They did.
Well, I'm Fred Jacoby. Well, at a previous meeting, I think you've got it on videotape already, that
okay,
the bailiff's name was connected with that church. And as far as it being called just a Reformed church, it just occurs to me that the churches over in Newton, these churches, they simply were called Reformed churches
Yeah.
in those days. But that's not accurate, but it's a recollection, and I think maybe that's what it was.
okay,
They didn't have more to the name than that.
all right, very good, thank you.
That,
Yes, go right ahead.
I'm Alice
You're on,
Matthias.
very good,
When that church was built, how was that financed?
okay, very good,
Anybody know anything about that?
all right,
The
thank you.
members.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Alice Matthias. I know that Eddie Franzmeyer owned that Reformed church,
He owned it,
owned it. When we first got married, we lived across, next door to Eddie Franzmeyer,
okay,
upstairs in an apartment, and
Yes.
the church was just across the street.
oh,
And there was
okay,
never any activity. I never saw anybody move there, except I would see Mr. Franzmeyer, and I was always afraid of him.
But who was the owner again, please?
Ed Franzmeyer.
Okay, okay, very good. Now, was that after the church was done with its, as being a church?
This would have been like in 1950.
Okay.
Beyond.
And,
And that was never used.
it was never used for
any
any-
time at that time.
I think he stored stuff in there, didn't he?
Okay, very good,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm Mary Miller, and about that church that we don't really know anything about,
Yes,
us kids, the neighborhood kids, we were told to stay away from there. It was haunted or spooky there, and
Okay.
we should just stay away.
stay away. That was a no-no place to
It
go.
was a no-no place. We got up to the bridge, and then that's all the farther we would ever go.
Okay, very good, thank you, Mary.
So,
We're looking at a picture and it's, looks like some construction going on, but maybe Mr. Bauer can identify
Yes.
himself and,
I'm Charlie Bauer, and we're looking at a picture here of the Firehouse in Cleveland, and
Okay.
I'm sitting here next to Dorothy Anderson, and she's going to explain a little bit about the building here. And I wanted to know if it was originally built as a firehouse, seeing it was 2 stories. And
That's your question.
That's your question too.
Oh, well, this particular picture is when they're putting in the storm sewer in front of Wimler's Tavern.
Okay,
And the firehouse is in the rear here with the 2 stories.
okay, with that bell tower on the back?
Yes.
Oh, on the top there, yes,
Now, I
okay,
have a picture here
okay,
of digging for the firehouse, and I don't know if that's the same firehouse or not.
okay, this looks like some kind of a water container?
Well, that's what Charlie says in some places they do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
That must be for the new firehouse that they built.
and that location is on what street?
Washington.
Washington
Well,
Street.
at least,
Okay, that's right, okay, that's next to Wimler's Tavern also, is that correct?
yeah, but a little further down.
Okay.
Little to the east.
All right. Okay, just one moment. Information regarding the firehouse, and you can identify yourself, please?
I'm Willard Matthias,
Okay.
an ex-fireman for the Cleveland Fire Department.
Okay, very good.
At that time, when like you said, why is it a 2-story building?
Yes, sir.
The fire truck was down below.
All right.
On top was the town of Centerville and the village of Cleveland's meeting hall.
Okay. Okay.
That was all one at that time. It wasn't
All right.
a village at that time.
Okay.
When you went to vote, you voted, had to climb the steps, go upstairs to vote,
Okay.
and that was in there. And they had a potbelly stove up there.
All right.
And after, when I first come out of the service, this was the building. We had 2 fire trucks in there at that time. When I come out, when I first got out, there was only one, but then later on, in 48, they bought another one. So we
Okay.
had 2 trucks in there.
Okay.
And we had our meetings upstairs
Yes, sir.
and our annual meetings upstairs. Now, you talk about a fire trap, that was it. But that's why it's a 2-story building, because it was,
Okay.
the equipment was downstairs and the meeting was upstairs.
All right. I see this as a bell tower on the roof area. Was that a siren or was that a bell or what?
Well, when I first started with the fire department, that's the only way they got to let you know there was a fire.
Okay.
Somebody would run over there and pull on the bell until they get enough people there.
Okay.
And then we'd all take off. And at that time, when I first started, we only had this one. Where's that truck?
This one?
Yeah. This is
Okay.
our only fire truck we had.
Okay, that was it.
Yes. That
Oh,
was
my goodness.
1947, when we, in 48, we bought a new one.
Okay. All right.
1948.
Okay.
But, that was it. And that, on that picture here, that was the bell tower.
That was the bell tower there. Okay.
Everybody that lived close by, when that bell would ring, they would come running.
Okay. Now, which way are we looking as we look at that picture? Which direction are we looking from the camera position?
East. Yeah, this would be the east.
That-
In front of Wimler's Tavern to the east.
Okay, we're looking to the east. Okay, very good. Since you said you were a part of the volunteer fire department, how many years were you in that?
Around 25.
25 years. Okay, very good. Thank
Till my
you.
legs wouldn't go no more.
Thank you. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Fred Jacoby. That second floor in that firehouse was used for various community meetings.
Okay.
It just seems to me that a 4-H club met there. I remember when I was a kid once, the county nurse was there on certain days, and I remember one time my mother took me down there. It must have been something she was worried about.
Okay.
And that would be her office,
For a few days.
for the day or
for the
what,
day.
I don't know.
Okay.
But that was it was a community place without going to a tavern probably.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Who can add a little bit of information? Go right ahead, please, and introduce yourself.
I'm Vernon Kress. This firehouse was moved right up the street past Wimler's Tavern,
Okay.
behind what is Yost's warehouse now, and it's real close to where the village hall is now.
Oh, really?
Harold Wimler bought it, and it stood there for a number of years.
Okay.
Then they built the present building,
Yes.
and my neighbor at that time was Francis Schmidt. He tore down this old firehouse.
Okay.
And regarding to this use,
Yes.
it had steps in the inside and the outside.
Okay.
You went upstairs to vote, and you walked out on the outside, and you walked inside. You went up the vote, and then
Yeah.
out the outside steps.
Okay.
So
So nobody would mingle at all, huh?
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Who will introduce himself, and he's got a little more information for us. Go right ahead.
Walter Chris.
Walter.
You're talking about the first firehouse.
Yes, sir.
This is the firehouse that was down in Hika.
All right. Is that over by that side of the picture?
This where my finger is.
Okay, very good.
And we used to have the land that was right in back of here, and I used to plant potatoes.
Okay. Now, was that tower that I see there, was that part of the firehouse
That's
too?
part of the firehouse. That's where the fire bell was.
Okay,
And there was one on top of the firehouse too, a little one.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And this is a
The other part is the feed mill
feed mill down in Hika though?
down in Hika.
Okay, so there was actually a firehouse in Hika and then the one in
This was the
Cleveland.
Badger Fire Company.
That's the Badger Fire Company?
Badger Fire Company.
Okay,
I
very
was a
good.
member for a while.
You were, okay, very good. Volunteer?
Volunteers.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
1946, 47.
Great, great, thank you. Would like to identify herself, and she's got some information?
Okay, I'm Kathy Wagner, and I'm reading from the Centerville Cleveland the bicentennial book for 1976.
Okay,
It says, originally the Badger Fire Department and the Cleveland Fire Department were separate fire departments. The Cleveland Fire Department started their charter in 1890. The first fire chief is not on record, but available are the following names of fire chiefs: William Taple, Harold Wimmler, Clarence Delsman, and present fire chief at this year was Francis Vandeloo.
okay, and that, again, that book was written in what year?
In 1976,
Okay,
For the centennial.
for the centennial.
okay, very good, thank you.
A picture here of when they were starting to build the firehouse, which is now the present firehouse.
Okay,
And this would be just to the west of this one that we see on those other pictures.
okay, the old building, in other words.
This is the new one.
That's the new one,
Yeah,
but,
that's the foundation, and then
Yes.
here's the firehouse.
okay. And that's facing out onto,
Washington.
okay, very good. Is that near, you are not near that area?
This
You-
is right down from Wimmler's, across the street from
Oh, okay.
Wimmler's Tavern, or across from the dairy,
Ah,
Matthias
Matthias
Dairy, would have
Dairy.
been, or the Lutzy Garage in that area.
okay, very good.
And,
Any other pictures you have there, Dorothy, that you could tell us about?
We got some more of the fire department.
You do have some more? Okay, just one moment, then we'll stop at this point. Who has arrived late for this meeting? And he'll introduce himself, and I'll duck when he swings at me.
Yeah, my name is Richard Wiegand. Sorry I'm late for the meeting, but I was paying taxes. Anyway, I have an article here about the old ladder, fire station ladder truck or something here, and I'm going to read it to you.
Okay,
It says here, hose cart American CA, or about 1865, Centerville, Wisconsin. Owner of the ladder wagon and Rumsey engine on display in this gallery numbers 18 and 25, whatever that refers to, but I think that's what this is here. That's
okay,
25.
I'm gonna come down to the pictures here.
This is 25. It's
Okay,
right on the machine here.
okay, very
And
good.
then, I don't know if this is 18, but
Okay,
it'd be it.
and these are fire equipment, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a ladder wagon and Rumsey engine.
Okay,
And it says commissioned, the owner commissioned a craftsman to build this hose cart around 1865. It could carry several hundred feet of cotton jacketed hose for the use of the Badger VFD, Volunteer Fire Department, firefighters.
okay,
In 1956, museum founder George F. Getz, G-E-T-Z Jr., found it together with the ladder wagon and engine in a barn near the site of Centerville, which no longer exists. He also acquired the town's old fire bell, which is on display now just outside the entrance of the Hall of Flame. And I presume this was,
This is in Arizona.
it's now in Arizona, it used to be in Kenosha, right?
Right.
Yeah, the Hall of Flame Fireman's Museum or something used to be in Kenosha, and that's
Okay.
where it was. And all this has been moved to Arizona now.
okay, now this equipment, again, if I'll throw that question back at you, did that have any origin here in this town? Or was it from some other source and held in a local city near here and then moved? Is that right?
Well, it said commissioned a craftsman to build the hose cart in 1865.
Okay.
It was probably built locally. I don't know where the
Okay.
engine came from.
And you mentioned the fire department, and I think that was the one in Hika, is that correct? The
I would-
Badger?
Yeah, right, yeah. You were talking about that Badger.
Okay.
And of course, I think this hose cart or this hose wagon,
Yes, sir?
wasn't that the one that went to the Chicago fire?
It came from there, I guess. It was made by the Badger Fire Company and was formerly owned by the city of Chicago. It helped to fight the Great Chicago Fire.
Okay.
Because when the fires broke out in Peshtigo in Chicago, which was almost on the same day, the fire department in Centerville here had to make a decision as to who they were going to help. And I don't remember the story exactly, but I think they headed in one direction first and turned around and then went the other way. And I think they ended up going to Chicago.
Couldn't imagine.
The Chicago fire was February 23rd, 1871.
Oh, that was in February. Okay,
February
so,
23rd,
okay, so then there wasn't, that story isn't correct because the Peshtigo fire was in October.
Same year though.
Same year, was in October, was later in the year. I thought they were both in October.
Will give us some information regard to this picture of something.
Richard Wiegand, this is obviously from the Hall of Flame, the Fire Museum.
Okay.
And it shows medallions that are from different fire departments around the U.S. and including Canada. I see Montreal is in there also.
Okay.
I don't see anything for Centerville in there.
Okay.
Whether they had one or not on display, I'm not sure. But I think that's the meaning of this photograph.
Very good. Thank you. Go right ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Richard Wiegand. The people here are saying that, and I'm sure it is, that these two pieces of equipment here were used by the Hika or the Centerville, what used to be called Centerville, Wisconsin Fire Department. And they are now in the museum in Arizona.
Okay.
Yes, they were from the Badger Fire Department.
Okay. Very good.
Here in Cleveland, or what used to be
All right.
Centerville.
And this is the badge, right? I think it was this
Have
one.
you got it? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does Kathy point out something?
Yes, we got it here. She thinks, Richard Wiegand continuing, it says here, there's one of these medallions or badges here, it says CSFD. This could be the Centerville Fire Department. It says established, and I believe it says 1840, wait a minute, let me see here. 1894, no.
No, that
No,
can't be then.
no, it can't be because it was
Can't be.
established too late unless it was reestablished.
Okay.
So that's not ours, sorry.
All right.
But it could, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, then.
Introduce yourself, please.
Dorothy Anderson, and I'm reading from a thing that the Manitowoc County prepared one time.
Okay.
The first fire department. From time to time in this manuscript, we have mentioned the destruction of buildings by fire. It seems that people in this community early learned of the worth of a fire department in a community. It was in 1850 that a ladder wagon was acquired. The wagon was built by local craftsmen, as were also the ladders. The ladders were made from trees which were sawed in half with hand-hewn rungs placed between them. The iron work on the ladder and poles was hand-forged. The 29-foot-long wagon, which was hand-pulled, has been restored to its original condition and is now in the Hall of Flame Museum at Kenosha, Wisconsin, but now it's in Arizona.
Okay.
This piece of firefighting equipment is said to be one of the most unusual in the entire collection of the firefighting equipment in this museum.
Okay. And that was obtained, that equipment was made for the Badger,
Yeah,
which was in Hika.
right, right on near that mill dam.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Please.
I'm Dorothy Anderson, and this is a picture of some men standing in front of the present fire station in Cleveland up here.
Okay. Very good.
And I don't know if anybody knows anybody on there.
Okay. Okay. Any other pictures you got there, Dorothy? We'll go with this as long as you got. And then if we need some identification, we'll go from there.
No, I don't think I'm gonna do, no. But there were a lot of fires. I mean, Everything burned
There's a
one
picture
time.
of the fire at the dairy if you want to show that.
Way back, yeah, here's a picture of the Matthias Dairy fire.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's too small.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I'll
Do you have a
take
date
that.
on that, Dorothy?
one did you want to see?
That was,
Okay, could you introduce yourself and indicate what we're looking at on the top picture?
Yeah, Richard Wiegand. I'm reading out of the Centerville, Cleveland history called Clearing the Land, which was written in 1976.
Okay,
The first picture we have here is the first ladder wagon of the Badger Fire Department.
okay,
And I don't see what's the date here? Oh, it was built by local craftsmen in 1850.
okay.
This must be that famous ladder wagon that we're talking about all the time.
All
That's
right.
my guess.
Okay, so
Okay.
now you can read.
I'm going to read the history of this here in the book. It says the Badger Fire Department acquired their first ladder wagon in 1850. This 29-foot hand-pulled wagon was made entirely by local craftsmen. This piece of fire department equipment is said to be one of the most unusual in the entire collection of firefighting equipment in the Hall of Flame Museum at Kenosha, which is now, that museum is in Arizona.
Okay,
The Badger Fire Department also constructed a red and white, hand-drawn and hand-operated pumper. This 1860 Rumsey pumper was used in fighting the Great Chicago Fire. Later, it was bought by the Cleveland Fire Department. Okay?
oh,
So it started in Chicago and then it was purchased by the Cleveland Fire Department.
okay,
It is now located at the Hall of Flame Museum in Kenosha, which is now in Arizona.
yes,
Originally, the Badger Fire Department and the Cleveland Fire Department were separate fire departments. The Cleveland Fire Department started their charter in 1890. The first fire chief is not on record, but available are the following names of fire chiefs: William Taple, Harold Wimler, Clarence Stoltzman, and present fire chief Francis Vandeloo. The first fire department building is still standing just to the south of Stoltenberg's funeral home.
okay,
The second fire department was to the east of the present firehouse. From 1852 from 1952 to 1960, the fire department rented garage space from the town of Centerville Town Hall, which is now owned by Manitowoc County Highway Department. The present fire department is presently adding a new addition, which will house 3 trucks.
okay,
Major fires combated by our volunteer firemen were a fire in 1830 which started, this is 1930, which started in a livery stable next to the Stoltenberg store, destroying completely both the store and the stable. In 1941, the Cleveland Fire Department responded to a request from the Millersville Fire Department for assistance at a fire at the box factory. In 1952, they fought a fire at the Seipel sawmill at Spring Valley.
okay,
Very publicized was the 1963 fire that destroyed Rutherford's Motel at Hika, and in 1974, Wimler's Tavern.
okay,
Okay, then they have a picture here. At the right is a picture of the hand-drawn operated pump constructed by the Badger Fire Department used in the Chicago fire. The Cleveland Fire Department purchased their first horse-drawn, gas-driven pump in 1908.
okay.
And then they have a picture of that pumper here, and then they have Stoltenberg's store before the fire.
Okay,
Those are the
let's
other
take a look at those pictures if you could, please.
Okay. The picture on the top is that pumper, hand pumper
All right,
wagon or truck, whatever they call it, and the bottom is the original Stoltenberg store and the livery stable next to it,
okay, very
which
good,
burned in 1930.
very good. Who has got a picture, and he wants to give us information in that area.
Yeah, my name is Richard Wiegand, and there were some questions in the last meeting about where the Reformed, you call it Reformed Church, was located in Cleveland. It no longer exists.
Okay,
And we have a photograph, an aerial photograph here, which actually shows the church. In the center of the photograph is Pippard's nursery.
good,
And on the top of the photograph here, going from west to east, is what is now East Washington.
Okay.
And Hika is here and the lake is over here. Lake Michigan would be over here.
All right.
And, let's see, hang on here.
Sure.
Okay. The church is here. It's located in the village of Cleveland, the current village of Cleveland. The church is no longer there. It was torn down in
Okay.
what, the 1960s sometime?
Early 70s, 71.
Early 70s, okay.
All right. Very good.
And the railroad track is running here.
All right. And that goes
through
north
here.
and south.
That goes north and south.
And
So,
your finger running across the page goes what direction then?
well,
it's
the
heading
railroad track is running north and south, and I guess the East Washington isn't exactly true with the railroad track. But
Okay.
the church was located near the railroad track
Yes.
and just off of East Washington, or West Washington, I should say, because it was on the west side of the tracks.
Okay.
And I don't know the name of the street that goes in there. Is that an extension of Hickory, or it's an extension of Hickory?
Extension Hickory. Okay. Very
Going
good.
across on the south side, and it only goes in a block or two.
All right.
That
Very
church
good.
is no longer there.
Well, that was great that somebody has that part of it. Very good. Thank you, Richard.
Vernon Chris,
Okay. I'm going right down there with you, Vernon.
right here in this corner of Center and Washington, this little white house here.
Okay.
I helped build that for my mother and dad.
Okay.
My mother lived there till 1983.
Very good. It was a wood frame.
Wood frame house, yes.
Very good. Thank you.
At what we're looking at?
For a second, here. Oh, what the heck am I? Right here. This is Vernon Chris again. This is my grandpa and grandma's farm.
Okay.
They moved off of there about 1940.
Okay.
And if you see that farm now, it's all a subdivision.
Ah, okay. Very good. Thank you. Got Kathy here, and she can introduce herself one more time and give us a little bit of recap of tonight's features.
I'm Kathy Sixel, and we featured the Matthias Dairy. Then we talked to the church next to it, and we also talked about the hotel that was the Wagner Hotel years ago. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to particularly thank Willard and Alice for the nice job they did, and also Lloyd for the nice job that he did, and for bringing his sister-in-law along. It was very informative. It was a good evening, and thank you, everyone. We will meet on April 14th, 2003 at 6:30, and we'll have to see which room.
Okay, very good. And Kathy, now that we're at the end of this meeting, what are you doing as a pastime now on this present day?
This present day,
Yeah.
I am here.
You're a warm one, too.
I do all sorts of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I work with this history group, which I really like to do a lot.
Okay.
And I do dolls, I paint dolls, I go to a class every week at Green Bay.
Okay.
Like to do artwork, I go to homemakers and
Okay.
many things. In
Very
church,
good.
a lot of things. So.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you. And if you'd introduce yourself and indicate a hobby or two that you're into.
I'm Mary Miller. I'm retired and busier than all heck.
Okay.
And I bowl.
Okay.
And the other week, with two of my sister-in-laws, we made quilts.
Wonderful.
Thought it was fun.
Very good. Okay. And if you'd introduce yourself and what you're doing for hobbies or whatever.
I'm Lloyd Vogel. I'm retired and looking forward to fishing on Lake Michigan pretty soon.
Okay. Very good. And would you introduce yourself, please, in a hobby or two?
I'm Fred Jacoby, and my main interest is probably old cars and trucks.
Okay.
Got a couple of those.
All right.
And I retired teacher, so I go into school once a week and read to several classes every week.
Wonderful. Good.
And sing in the church choir and all kinds of stuff, and don't have enough time.
Wonderful.
Also, I'm busy
Yes.
being a grandpa.
Good. And if you'd introduce yourself and what you're doing for a hobby or so.
I'm Willard Matthias. I'm retired from the Kohler Company now.
Okay.
And I'm doing a little woodworking a little at a time.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to going up to my cottage for the summer months.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And would you introduce yourself and a hobby or two?
I'm Alice Matthias. I'm retired. I used to work at the bank.
Okay.
And I just finished a Afghan. I knitted it. And now I'm working on a first-time project, which is getting to a little bit nerve-wracking, is a quilted bedspread.
Wow. Big project. Big project. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Marie, if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you got for a little hobby or two.
I'm Marie Pippert. After hearing all this, the heck, I'm not doing a darn thing. Heck no, I did the laundry this morning. And I'm looking forward to spring when I can ride bike and make a garden.
Very good. Thank you. And would you introduce yourself?
I'm Merlin Kress. I'm retired, and as a hobby, I go over to Cleveland Bank and shovel over the moldy money.
All right. Good one.
That's
Good.
where mine is going.
Okay, and who do you have here, please?
I'm Dolores Kress. I'm married to him.
Okay.
Believe it or not. And I retired from Northern Plastics.
Okay. And you do any kind of hobbies?
Oh, I clean house.
You clean house? Okay.
I cook.
Okay.
I can.
Everything for him.
Yeah, right.
The lucky dog.
And we go to Pelican Lake.
Oh,
We
wonderful.
spend time in Pelican Lake.
Wonderful.
He fishes and
Sure.
I sit there and watch TV and
Just relax.
just do nothing.
Oh, very good. Thank you. And you, sir, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Walter Kress, I'm also retired,
Yes, sir.
and I help out at the senior center
Okay.
for pastime
Okay, and that's here in Cleveland?
here in Cleveland.
Very good. Okay, thank you. And you'd introduce yourself, please?
I'm Kathy Wagner, and I'm retired too, and I'm most of the time tired. Involved in church and school and community and
Okay.
senior center and
Yes? Just
all sorts of things
great.
on the run.
Very good. Thank you so much. And who do I have here, please?
I'm Dorothy Anderson, and I go to the Y pool in Manitowoc every weekday
Wow.
morning, and otherwise there's a church there and
Uh-huh.
senior center
Yes?
and things like that.
Very good. Good to be active. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Charlie Bauer, I'm retired and I enjoy woodworking hobbies, making models of buildings and
Okay.
working on a bridge right now.
Very good. Okay. And introduce himself and his hobby or two?
Yeah, my name is Richard Wiegand. I'm the only one in the room who's not retired. And I can't afford to retire anytime soon unless I can find a rich woman. In which case I would dedicate 110% of my time to history work. My hobby is, I have a lot of hobbies. One of them is actually this group and anything related to local history.
Okay.
Another hobby is travel, of course, and I get out of the country.
Okay.
Centerville Settlement, of course, one
Yes.
of the founders of that.
Okay.
So those are things that I take photographs of just about every place I go to. And
Very good.
so anyway,
Thank you very much, Richard. And myself, I am also retired, and I do a little videoing on the side for weddings and anniversaries and birthdays or whatever. And I enjoy very much videoing this project and this group. They're very, very cordial, and I do enjoy it. And I'll let Kathy sign us off a little bit here, and we'll call it an evening.
I'm going to sign off by giving you a big hand tonight, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm Charlie Bauer, and Jerry, today, which is the 11th of March, is in my shop, and he come over so I could correct a date that I gave wrong last night at our historic group at LTC, and he's kind of looking at my little bridge project I'm working on, and this is just a model of a bridge down in Cedarburg, which I'm making a copy of. But to get back to business here, last night we were talking about the Chicago fire, and when Richard was reading about the hose cart and the engine that Hika or Cleveland sent down to help with the Chicago fire, I gave a date of February 23, 1871 as the date of the Chicago fire. And as I was having coffee this morning, I went and checked in my World Book Encyclopedia, and I did give the wrong date, so we're going to correct that here, and I got egg all over my face today. So, but the date of the Chicago fire was October 8 in 1871, and I got a couple little lines in here that I'm going to read.
Okay.
And it starts, the summer of 1871 was unusually dry in Chicago. Only about a fourth the normal amount of rain fell between July and October. With all its wooden buildings, Chicago was like kindling. Then on the evening of October 8, 1871, a fire started on the southwest side of the city. And there's rumor, or they kind of believe, that Mrs. Patrick O'Leary's cow kicked the lantern over, but I'm not going to get into that because I just wanted to correct the date of the fire. So it is October 8, 1871.
Okay,
And that's the same year of the Peshtigo fire.
okay. That was both at the same time? Is that about what happened there?
I
Or
couldn't
very
find the
close?
exact day and month of the Peshtigo fire,
Okay,
but the amount of people that lost their lives in Chicago was 300 people lost their lives in Chicago, but the
Okay.
Peshtigo fire, they lost 1,200 people.
okay,
But
Fine.
everybody talks more about the Chicago fire than they do the Peshtigo fire.
okay. Well, thank you very much, Charlie, for that addendum to the situation, and we'll have it on record here on tape.
We wanted to get it factual, you know.
Very good. Thanks, Charlie.
Sure.